afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Munch and Learn. Luckily, we seem to have a beautiful day today, like last week, and that beautiful day is going to continue through the rest of this week, including Saturday, when we will be hosting our Women in the Arts event in conjunction with Theater Memphis from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you can come out, please do. We're going to have a lot of really wonderful performances, as well as a shuttle that will run to Theater Memphis so that you can also go and see what they have to offer. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, our own curator, Julie Pierotti.
Okay, let me get set up here. Okay, thanks guys. Thanks for coming on a pretty day like this. I appreciate y'all spending some time inside when it's, you know, the pull is to bring us outside after last week being so icky. But I've been excited to put this Munch and Learn together. I started doing these types of Munch and Learns in the first quarter of the year, I think in either 2018 or 19. Where we take a look back at the works of art that we added to the collection in the previous years. So those of you hoping to see a picture, you know, learn about Donnie, Jordan, Joey, Mac, Danny, and Jonathan, I'm sorry. But if you want to talk about new kids after this, come up here. But it's, you know, I think it's a great opportunity to introduce you to the new kids at the Dixon, which is our, you know, newest acquisitions. And that's acquisitions have been a priority for the Dixons really since Kevin got here in 2007. But we really started ramping our acquisition program up in 2012. And just in the past 6 or 7 years, it's really gained steam. So it's nice to be able to take a minute and learn about our new friends. So 2021, and I say friends because we really are kind of emotionally attached to the works of art in our collection, and we really think of them as friends. Like when paintings go on loan and they come back, we're like, oh, I miss this so much, you know. So we're very lucky to have a small collection that we really get to know really well. And so many of you that I see out here are such loyal Dixonians that I know you feel the same way about the works of art in our collection too. So it's always fun to make new friends, and that's what we'll do today. So as you all know, 2021 was such a roller coaster ride of a year. I mean, we kind of, you know, shifted from optimism to fear to optimism and fear and back to, you know, from coronavirus 1 to, okay, I think we're past this, to Delta, to, okay, I think we're past this, to Omicron. But I'm really very, very proud to work at a place like the Dixon, because I feel like in the midst of all of that chaos of last year, the Dixon remains such a strong institution and really adapted to the changing environment. And we really continued to present the meaningful programming that you all have come to expect from us over the years. And I can say this because he's not here, but a lot of that goes back to Kevin for being such a great leader and really guiding our institution and flexing with the times. So in the midst of all that, we were able to continue presenting meaningful shows like America's Impressionism that really fulfill our mission of introducing everyone to artists and learning more about artists that we already know about in our little time period, which is 1850 to 1950 European and American art. We also presented Memphis 2021, which was a wonderful show of the art of our own time and place. And what a wonderful, colorful, energetic exhibition that was. And then we ended the year with Black Artists in America, where we really, you know, presented some really interesting and in many cases groundbreaking research on artists, on Black American artists that really haven't been studied before, including artists that worked right here in Memphis. So I feel, and let me pause and say, 3 out of the 4 exhibitions that we had in 2021 were organized by the Dixon. In the midst, and so much of the work of that was done in 2020 and in early 2021. So we really worked hard to continue being the Dixon that you all know and love. So I think it was a fun year exhibition-wise. And also a really great year for acquisitions at the Dixon. So we also continued to make the Dixon a stronger institution by adding more works of art to our collection that help us tell a more well-rounded story of the art of the Dixon's kind of time and place. So we are going to look at the works of art that we added to the collection in accession number order. So just a little Museum 101. Elizabeth, do I press the red dot? Okay, there we go. We are going to look at works of art by their accession numbers. So at the Dixon, all museums do accession numbers a little bit differently, but at the Dixon, if you see 2021.1, that means we got the work of art in the year 2021, and it was the first work we added to the collection in 2021. All museums kind of have a system that's basically like that. So when you travel to other museums and you see a work of art that says, oh, 1972.3.2, it means they got the work of art in 1972. It was the 3rd gift or 3rd acquisition of that year, and it was the 2nd piece in that gift. So that's just Museum Life 101. So we're going to go through in the order in which these works came to us. So the first one is this one. This is by Alfred Maurer. It's called Fauve Landscape. And if this painting actually doesn't seem new to you, it's because it's not. It's been on loan to the Dixon since 2010 from the collection of Nita and Keith Katner. The Katners are really great collectors of American art. And from 2010 to 2021, they had their collection of American paintings on long-term loan to the Dixon while they kind of were traveling and moving. And we did a few exhibitions actually out of their collection. So if the name Katner rings a bell, that's why. And they've kind of settled in their more or less permanent home, and we're ready to have their collection come back to them. But as a token of their gratitude for us, keeping their collection for a decade, I can't believe it went by really fast. They gave us this Maurer that was part of the long-term loan, and we were thrilled. We were so excited to have it because I think it's really nice to show the impact of Fauvism on American artists. And if you're talking about Fauvism in America, you're talking about Maurer pretty much. So just a little bit about him. He was a New York artist. His father actually worked for Curator and Knives, if you remember, if you've heard of the printmaking company that's also in A Christmas Song. And he is an interesting artist to study, and he's kind of come back into vogue in American art a little bit. The Addison Gallery of American Art at Phillips Academy did a show about him a few years ago that really kind of brought him back to the public's attention. And he's interesting to me because he goes through very distinct and different phases in his career. So he starts out his career in this kind of William Merritt Chase phase, where he's painting, pretty women in interiors. He then goes on to, he also has an ashcan kind of phase where he paints these scenes of contemporary life in New York or in, New York and its surroundings. He goes to Paris in the early 1900s, maybe about 1904, I think, and starts painting popular entertainment in Paris. So we have a few examples of American artists looking at Paris cafes or nightclubs as subjects for their paintings. And Maurer does this pretty, regularly for a couple of years. And they're always kind of have this dark, dark saturation of colors to them. And they're you know, they're showing people having a good time, but they have a certain kind of dark quality to them. And then in the maybe 1906, he sees the work of Henri Matisse. And it's like a light bulb goes off. And I love these moments in art history, when it's like artists do this kind of about face where they have this experience and it totally changes them. And that's what happened to Maurer. It's like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, going from black and white, and when she's in Oz, she opens the door and everything's in color. And that's basically what happened to Maurer. So he goes from paintings like this to paintings like that pretty quickly. And he becomes the first American artist to embrace Fauvism. He embraces this, as you can see, a really vibrant color palette and energetic brushwork that is the hallmark of Fauvism. And look at the influence of Matisse. I mean, this is just our little Matisse sketch. And so here's Matisse and here's Maurer. You can see the kind of close relationship between the two artists, and how Maurer really admired what Matisse and Marquet and other Fauves were doing. And so again, showing our Matisse with our Maurer to see the color palette and how similar it is. You can see, you know, his approach to painting, well, Maurer's approach to painting will have that kind of rough texture to it. And when he showed this work, he goes back to the United States around 1909, I think, and starts showing his Fauve landscapes in New York. And it's like shocking. I mean, it's kind of like Fauvism was when it was first shown in Paris. It's just as shocking as in the United States, probably more so than it had been in France. It was called, Maurer's Fauve landscapes were called Wild and Revolutionary, and he was seen as the first American to go Fauve. And here's a little quote from a writer of a New York newspaper reacting to Maurer's landscape. Maurer, you may remember, is the artist that was the great white hope of the Mauve decade and was considered along with Chase. Then he met Matisse, and what happened to him was nobody's business except the bomb squads. It's a little intense. But, you know, in the moment, people understood how, you know, new this was and how shocking and exciting it was. So he kind of kept painting in this Fauvist style for a little while, but then he goes on to another phase in his career where he starts painting these images of women, either as a duo or by themselves, that are influenced by Modigliani. And they also have this kind of rough texture to it. He does still life in this manner, and then he also goes through a phase toward the end of his life where he does these Cubist inspired still lifes. But you know, he's best known, if you were to talk about Maurer today, I think he's best known for this, this bold use of color and the Fauvist approach to painting. So it's on view in the dining room right now. So after you have your lunch, you can kind of mosey on over there. So now we'll talk about 2021.2, and it's actually interesting to have it on the screen and then on the wall right next to the screen. But this is Adrian Dumont's Hyacinth Fields in Bloom at the Van Hout Nursery in Ghent from 1883. This was our Curator Circle acquisition up for 2021. The Curator Circle is a support group that we started in 2016 where members pool their, you know, their dues or their contributions together, and we go after one really big work of art. So the Dumont was the one we got this year. It's a wonderful addition to our collection, and certainly a good fit for the Dixon, right? I mean, we are a museum in such a beautiful public garden, but we actually don't have many garden paintings in our collection. I think we only have 2 of actual, you know, cultivated gardens. So this was kind of a no-brainer for us in a lot of ways, and it's certainly Adrian Dumont's masterpiece. So we're very happy to have it. If you don't know Dumont, don't worry about it. He's one of these painters who was actually really popular and successful during his lifetime, But because he was a salon painter and not really associated with Impressionism per se, he's kind of one of these artists that time has overlooked a little bit. And that's why it's so exciting that we have this painting in our collection, because we can kind of reintroduce him to the museum world a little bit. He was the son of a notary and actually started following in his father's footsteps. But at a certain point, Dumont decided he wanted to kind of explore his artistic side. And he trained under these two painters, Camille Corot, who the painting on the left is in the Dixon's collection, and Jules Breton, who's the painter of the image on the right. Remember the name Breton. We may be doing a Breton show in a few years here at the Dixon. We actually did a Breton show. If there's any super duper long-term Dixonians in here, we did a Breton show in like 1986 here. So we'll be looking at him again in the future, and I'm excited about that. And actually, Dumont became so close to Jules Breton that he married his daughter, Virginie. Virginie Dumont Breton was actually a painter herself and a pretty successful painter. So the two of them are this sort of artistic super couple, which we love here at the Dixon, because we have a painting by Henri Fontaine-Latour and Victoria Dubourg Fontaine-Latour. So anyway, Adrian Dumont started out painting in a Barbizon-inspired style. So looking at peasants at rural labor, farmers tending fields, men and women kind of laboring, doing physical labor. And actually, he was very successful with it. He began showing at the Paris Salon in 1873, when he was just like 21, 22 years old. And he would remain a regular contributor to the Salon for the rest of his career. But in the early 1880s, he switched and began focusing on panoramic garden views. And that's where he really achieved success. That series, that kind of focus of his, culminated in this painting, our painting, of the hyacinth fields at the Van Hout Nursery, Ghent. Okay, so when we were looking at this painting as an option for Curator Circle, I almost hesitated to show it to Dale, because I knew he was just going to freak out, and he did. He's like, oh, the Van Hout Nursery, you got it. He goes into his Dale mode where he starts spouting information. Dale is an endless font of garden knowledge, if anybody doesn't know that. So the Van Hout Nursery is actually, and that's another thing that makes this painting so attractive to us. It is a known place, a known nursery that Dumont was depicting, and a really significant one too. So Van Hout, Louis Van Hout, was a Belgian horticulturalist and a really pioneering one. He set up this nursery, or Jardin de Plantes, outside of Ghent, in Belgium, present day Belgium, where he had greenhouses. So this image here is of the inside of a greenhouse where he had these very large lily pads, and he had a nursery too. So I think the fields that we're looking at in Dumont's painting are just out this way. And he had traveled to the Americas, so North America, Central America, South America, and really introduced South American plants to European, the European horticulture community. So he was a real pioneer in a lot of ways, and a very significant figure in horticulture history, really. So I think that was exciting for us to be able to help tell a story about such an important spot for garden history. So at first, when this is a little close up of it, at first we thought these trees were magnolias here because, like I said, Van Hout was known for bringing plants that are native to the Americas, to Europe. But then Dale, I think, told me that he thinks these are rhododendrons growing here. But we were also excited by the techniques that are on display in this painting. The use of cloches and cold frames that we, still do here today, which is exciting. So I'm challenging Dale, who's not here, to do a Munch and Learn all about this painting because he likes it so much. And be on the lookout for hyacinth to be growing this year. I know they planted hyacinth bulbs this year, but I believe next year we're going to be doing a big focus on hyacinth here at the Dixon. So that's what Dale gets for being so excited about it. And another thing that was great about this is monuments. They're on in the background of the painting. So we have here St. Bavo's Cathedral, and St. Bavo in Ghent is the home of the Ghent altarpiece. If any of y'all have just taken Art History 101, you probably know about the Ghent altarpiece. It's sort of, it is the masterpiece of Northern Renaissance art, and it's got its home there in Ghent. Next to it is the Ghent Belfry, or the Belfry of Ghent. And then on the end here is St. Nicholas's Church. So it's nice when we can point out architecture that, you know, still exists today, and many of us have actually seen in a work of art. So our Dumont, this painting was shown at the 1883 Paris Salon. And that year there was 2,500 works of art on view at the Salon. Can you imagine? We think an exhibition here of like 80 works of art is overwhelming. So 2,500 works of art. And this painting was singled out several times in the various French newspapers. It was described as having the charm of naturalness in full, soft, bright illumination, with exceptional fidelity to atmosphere and a ravishing delicacy of color. And I agree. I think that you really kind of do feel the atmosphere, almost like a day like today, a clear, when the air is really clear and fresh. So Dumont, I forgot about this. So the first owner of this painting, and actually the person who owned the painting when it was shown at the Salon, in the Salon catalog, it says collection of Samuel Putnam Avery. Samuel Putnam Avery was a really significant American art collector and dealer. He was actually an artist himself, but he was a founding trustee of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and a great collector, great kind of benefactor to a lot of New York institutions, including Columbia University. And this painting actually, though, even though Avery was an art dealer, this painting was in his personal collection and was passed down to his son after he died. The painting then after his son died, went to the Wadsworth Atheneum in Connecticut, and then was deaccessioned by them at some point, and then, you know, was in private collections for many years before it came to the Dixon. So that's just, we are provenance nerds here at the Dixon, and when there's somebody kind of famous to us that appears in the provenance or ownership history of a work of art, we get super excited about it. So Dumont continued to paint garden subjects to great success throughout his career. I love this one of a working vegetable garden in spring. He also painted literary subjects. So here's an image from Don Quixote here. And, you know, like I said, he and both his wife were very successful throughout their career. So it's showed at the Salon, and paintings were really well received and very well collected. And by the time, and, you know, after their death, these monuments to them were put in their town. They actually never resided full-time in Paris. They lived in Bisson, which is near Calais in the north of France. And today, these statues or monuments to them still exist. So I hope you enjoy. I know everybody is enjoying this painting, and hope and we love having it. Very grateful to have it. Okay, another new painting to us is this one by William Edward Scott, From Very Big to Very Little. This painting is about yay big. This is William Edward Scott's Squirrel Scene. And if this painting looks familiar to you, it may be because it was in our Black Artists in America exhibition that we had this past fall. We were very excited to be able to add it to our collection just in time for the show. And it's been great to have William Edward Scott represented in our collection, because he's part of a kind of a line of Black American painters that will tell you, will connect the dots for you in just a second. So here's Scott. He was from Indianapolis, and actually the Indianapolis Museum of Art has several works in their collection by him. He studied at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago before, in 1909, he goes to Paris and he seeks out this man, Henry O. Tanner, who we have this painting in our collection by Tanner. And Tanner is kind of, it's almost like Black American artists who are going to Paris. It's like they make a pilgrimage to go see Tanner. He's like the guy who did it, who made it, who left the United States, went to Paris and became really successful. So Scott goes to study with him, and Tanner seems to really take him under his wing. Scott stays with him for a period of time, stays with him at his summer house too. And over the years that Scott is in Paris, you can really see a correlation between his style and Tanner's style. There's a lot of, kind of cross-pollination there, or influence. And even after Scott returns to the United States, Tanner and his work will be a huge influence on Scott for the remainder of his career. And fun fact, loyal Dixonians, this painting has been on view twice at the Dixon. It was in our hunting and fishing show, and it was also in For America, the show we had in the summer of 2020. So like I said, Scott came back to the United States in 1914 at the outbreak of the First World War. And he went about painting the rural South, actually spent many years painting and, all across the South, particularly in Alabama. His brushwork, and that's on view in this painting, is really lively. I want to do a little more research on this painting because we were kind of given the circa date of 1930, but I think it may be earlier than that. His brushwork is lively, these really great clear colors, and charming subject. We love bunnies. So when we saw that the painting had bunnies, and it was like, oh, we got to have it. And so it's a charming subject by truly a very important American artist. In 1931, Scott received a Julius Rosenwald Fellowship or grant to study in Haiti. So he went to Haiti and documented the landscape there and the people. Stayed there for about a year and a half, I think. And when he came back to the United States, his career as a muralist really took off, and he received commissions to do murals kind of in Indianapolis, in Chicago, and in Washington, D.C., which is where this mural is of Frederick Douglass. And most of his murals are about Black American history and kind of like significant events and significant figures in Black American history. And by the end of his career, he had completed 75 murals. Some were in federal buildings and some were at places like YMCA's. And he also, toward the end of later in his career, his work kind of started addressing social justice issues, and political themes. But we love our little rural scene, and like I said, very happy to be able to tie a connection between Tanner and an artist that really influenced, like Scott. Okay, so we see, good. We see prints at the Dixon as a way that we can really easily grow our collection. And as Kevin has probably said up here many times, the late 19th and early 20th century is such a rich age for printmaking, a lot of experimenting going on and innovations going on with printmaking. So when we saw this print by Ganut of Henri Gerard, we thought, yes, this is perfect for us. And if the names Ganut and Gerard sound familiar, it's because we had a show in 2016 on Henri Gerard and the phenomenon of the artist fan in France from 1875 to 1900. And in that exhibition, that really, Gerard was the focus of that show, but of course we brought other voices into that project. We had a painting by Ganut in that show. This one, Woman with a Fan, that's from the was in the collection of Marlene and Spencer Hayes in Nashville, which is a really great collection of late 19th and early 20th century art. So who is Ganut? Well, Ganut was a painter and a printmaker and illustrator, did a little bit of everything. He was friends with Manet, Monet, Degas, and Renoir. And he actually is this guy in the Moulin de la Galette by Renoir, kind of posed for his Impressionist friends over the years. Although Ganut never exhibited with the Impressionists, he preferred to show his work at the Salon. He painted modern French life, modern Parisian life, in the manner of Tissot, of James Tissot, like this one. But also this one really reminds me of Jean-Louis Forain, showing, you know, elegant Parisians. He was also a great printmaker, and his prints very often explore the same subjects of his paintings. The idea of a woman at a hat shop is a classic Impressionist subject that was really embraced by Degas in particular. But he also, I love this print, explored printmaking in his prints. So this is the one on the left, the one that's ours, is a printmaker making a print about printmaking, showing the life of another great printmaker. Looking at Gerard, and as you may remember from our fans show in 2016, Gerard was a very important printmaker in the late 19th century, in addition to his experiments with the fan format. But I wanted to show this. So here's two images, pretty much the same subject, 12 years apart. So here's Ganut looking at Gerard in 1876. And in this one, he's just going through kind of an album of prints, or like a box of prints, leafing through them. And the one 12 years later in 1888, this one, the one on the right, is a little bit better known. Actually, it was reproduced in our fans catalog, showing Gerard at his press, kind of examining a print that he had just made. So I love these little insights into artistic life. And this is great for us because Gerard, the subject of this, we have so many works by Gerard that are a promised gift to the Dixon from the collection of Lucy and John Buchanan. So many many of the fans that were in our 2016 fans exhibition are a promised gift to the Dixon. So you'll be hearing about Gerard in years to come. And we're very glad to have a print that kind of that shows him and gives us a little glimpse into his life. Okay, now if you'll turn around on the back wall, we see another new friend at the Dixon. We've kind of switched up some things in here in the last couple of weeks, if you hadn't noticed. But the one in the center on the left is, thank you, Kevin, is this painting on the screen. So again, this is blowing it up big, but it's, you know, not a tiny painting, but much smaller than it is on the screen. This is a gift, painting by Jules Dupré from Susan Adler Thorpe. And if the Adler name sounds familiar, it's because we're standing among the Adler pewter collection. Susan's parents, Herta and Dr. Justin Adler, gave us all the pewter in this room. They also gave us a painting, and if the Dupré name sounds familiar, wrong way, gave us a painting by Julienne Dupré, which is also on the back wall, second up, that has, talk about accession numbers, has the very awesome accession number of 1976.1. It was the first work of art given to the Dixon after we opened in 1976. So it's a very special painting to us in many ways. Actually, I had long thought that Julienne Dupré was Jules Dupré's like nephew or something, but it turns out they are of no relation. But they both painted kind of rural subjects. We think this painting by Jules Dupré is a wonderful example of his work. Jules Dupré is often lumped in with the Barbizon school, but he's a little bit different from them. He, instead of doing his kind of artistic his artistic travels to Italy for inspiration, he actually goes to England, where he becomes enamored with the work of John Constable, and Constable's really kind of honest, simple depictions of the landscape. And he goes back and tries to implement that approach to landscape painting on the French landscape. And while he did go to Fontainebleau and work in the Barbizon area, he was actually great friends with Théodore Rousseau. And the painting on the left, if you attended this Munch and Learn of mine last year, we learned about this painting by Rousseau then. That was a 2020 gift to the Dixon collection. Dupré and Rousseau were like besties for a while. And then actually, I think something happened between them and they had a split and really never were friends again after about in the mid 1840s. Dupré did go to Fontainebleau for a short period, but for the most part, he's based in a town called L'Île Adam, which is north of Paris. So Barbizon is south of Paris, and the place where Dupré lived and worked along the Oise River is north of Paris. And he went there, goes there and really kind of focuses on painting the landscape there over and over again. His paintings, like this one, are not so much trying to be super accurate recordings of what he's seeing, but more evocative of the mood or kind of the vibe of the area there. So they can be kind of dark sometimes. This painting is pretty dark. And I've kind of lightened it actually a little bit for the slide here because I know the projector tends to skew dark a little bit. But that's kind of what Dupré's work was. I mean, it was oftentimes kind of this rustic, earthy, muted color palette. And he's showing cows at the watering hole, which was a common subject for him at the time. Again, just kind of showing the humble nature of the French landscape. So he kind of continued painting this style until, and in that same region until he died in the 1880s. So we're very happy to have this painting too, and I think it makes a nice, even on that back wall with the Daubigny that's next to it, helps us tell the story of the artist kind of a generation before the Impressionists. And we're always happy to be filling out our kind of roster of artists of that generation. Okay, so now for something new and exciting for the Dixon's collection. These are two of our first photographs to enter our collection. We have shown photography here over the years, but it's not a collecting focus for us. But when we were offered these works from our good friend, Kevin, I didn't think you were going to be here for this picture, but Robert Flynn Johnson. Some of you may remember RFJ, as we call him here. He was the curator of our fans exhibition in 2016. And Robert is such a good guy. He, in addition to being a very knowledgeable print scholar, he was the curator of prints and drawings at the Achenbach at the Fine Arts Museums of San Francisco for many, many years. But since along the way, he has become an obsessive collector. He is an art hoarder, but he's also very generous. And over the years has given us, this is just a sampling of some of the works of art that Robert has given us over the years. And he's been such a good friend to us. In addition to the fans show, we took his Contemplating Character exhibition. And in 2019, he was the curator of the show on the Comtesse de Castiglione. But so at toward the end of last year, Robert called and asked if we might be interested in these photographs by Eugène Auger of the Luxembourg Gardens in Paris. And we were thrilled. We were super excited about it. Auger is a very important French photographer at turn of the century Paris, who kind of the mantle of that, or the kind of the tradition that was started by Charles Marvell, the photographer on the left, of painting or of capturing empty Paris and really a changing Paris. Actually, those, and Chip, since you're here, you would like this. Chip sends me newspaper articles from time to time. There was a great article in the New York Times last year that took Eugène Auger's photographs and compared them, and then a contemporary photographer went into Paris and captured the same scenes in pandemic Paris where the streets were empty. There were no tourists anywhere. So if you kind of Google Eugène Auger and New York Times, that article will come up. And I mean, it's just worth a scroll through. It really shows you how much the pandemic or lockdown emptied the normally kind of bustling and vibrant streets of Paris. Auger's photographs were described as having a beneficial distance between man and his environment. So we're looking at man-made architecture, this man-built environment, but there's no people in it for the most part. And I think that's something interesting. So he documents old Paris and kind of his contemporary new Paris too. But over the course of his career, he repeatedly visited the Luxembourg Gardens to capture its plant life, the plants that had been, that were growing there, but also the landscape architecture there, which I thought is really interesting for us. So again, this is two more works of art that speak to gardens and known gardens and significant, famous gardens at that. So here's one view of them. And he, like I said, goes to the Luxembourg Gardens repeatedly throughout his career. And we also have this photograph of the Medici fountain at the Luxembourg Gardens. So here's the fountain here. And then look, it's all still there today. So it's wonderful that next time, we're all in Paris, we have a work of art in our collection that we kind of make that connection for all of us. So like I said, like the Dumont, we're thrilled to have this and very grateful for our ongoing friendship with Robert and all he has done for us over the years, all the gifts he has given us over the years. Okay, another print that we've added to the collection in 2021. This is from Cece and Sandy Jameson here in Memphis, really generous gift from them. It's by Francisco de Goya. So if that name sounds familiar and you took Art History 101, you may remember paintings like these by Goya. So he's really the Spanish painter of the late 18th century. But he's also a really pioneering printmaker who does a lot with social commentary through various series of prints that he publishes. His prints have been described as the dawn of modern art. This series in particular that this print comes from, which is Los Caprichos, is also hugely influential. This print in particular is plate 50 from that series called Los Chinchillas. And it's about a family that is obsessed with their ancestry, their kind of noble ancestry. So if you can't tell what's going on, they're wearing straitjackets, these two figures here, and their straitjackets have their coat of arms on them. They are being fed by a blindfolded donkey. So they're being kind of just to show their ignorance. So this print, they're humorous, but they're also kind of poking fun at Spanish society at the time. And this print series and all of Goya's prints will become so influential for artists a generation, that come generations after him, really including Honoré Daumier, who we have a huge collection of prints by Daumier here at the Dixon. And really even later, Jean-Louis Forain. I mean, if you think of Forain's La Comédie Parisienne, that series that's kind of looking at kind of exposing the follies of French society, that really goes back to Goya, to the tradition that Goya started. Now, one more fun thing. If the men here in this picture look familiar, or if something's ringing a bell, were also the inspiration for Boris Karloff's depiction of Frankenstein. And I think that's always kind of fun. I love a film connection. Okay, so rounding out the year with the last gift that we received in 2021, we received 2 watercolors by Arthur Dove from Melinda Minky. And if the Minky name sounds familiar, it's because for years our volunteer lounge was called the Minky Lounge, and actually the part of the cafe is still referred to as the Minky Gallery, Minky Lounge. So the Minky family has been really great to us over the years. And we were so excited to receive these two small watercolors by Arthur Dove. Arthur Dove was an important American modernist painter. Actually, he was friends with Alfred Maurer, the first painter we looked at the beginning of this talk, and created these really wonderful modernist interpretations of the landscape. But watercolor was also a really important artistic medium for him, a medium for experimenting over the years. And in the 1930s, so this example on the left kind of got this more regionalist feel to it. It reminds me of Modern Dialect a little bit, the show we had in 2012 here. And then in the 40s, his watercolors took on a much more abstract nature and really become these kind of, he described them as harmonies, where he's playing with color and the relationships of color to each other. So, you know, in recent years, thanks to the Susan and John Horseman gift and for instance, like our 2019 acquisition of a work by Fernand Léger, we've been looking into modernism a little bit more. And with these and the Maurer, I think we're really kind of opening that door a little bit more here at the Dixon, and I'm excited about that. Also in the Minky gift was this reverse glass painting by Marston Hartley. So Marston Hartley is another one of those art history 101 painters. He's you may know him for works of art like these that bring together facets of, you know, Cubism, Expressionism, and really a lot of his work has kind of a spiritual quality to it. But he was also really experimented with reverse glass painting, which is a technique that's like centuries old. It kind of first think of it in the Middle Ages and in the Byzantine Empire. It's where you paint on the back side of a piece of glass, and then you kind of flip it over and look at it through the glass, look at the work of art through the glass. So Hartley experimented with that mostly, you know, in the mid 19-teens. A lot of them are around 1916, 17, 18, and are mostly looking at still life. So we were excited to have, you know, we've been kind of building our still life collection here in the last few years, starting with the Horseman gift, where we added several still lifes to the collection. And then over the years, we've added a few more. So excited. I'm very glad to have this and this very unique example of still life painting. So those are the works of art that we added. It was a big year for us in 2021, and we're already off to a great start in 2022. So this time next year, we'll be doing the same thing. And just thank y'all for your support and for all of y'all being, you know, kind of cheering us along as we make these acquisitions. It means a lot to us. And I know y'all will come to consider them as friends, just like we do here. So thank you. Thank you so much. I hope I didn't feed you with too much ignorance. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Cool. Thank you. Oh, Kevin's got a question. What can I do for you, Kevin?
Okay, what's your favorite acquisition in 2021?
I love to play the What's Your Favorite game. Oh, Kevin, that's tough. Let me go back to the slide with all the pictures on it. I like many of them. Of course, the Dumont is special. I love having that here. I think it really does something for us and allows us to tell a story. But I love the Scott. I really was very happy that that opportunity came our way and that we were able to add that to our collection. I think it's a sweet, nice painting. And of course, anything with bunnies in it, I love. And I love the Maurer. I've always loved that painting in the Kettner collection, and I'm just very happy that it's ours forever. All of the above. Yes, I do. Yeah, but I do play favorite. Is in the Scott. Yeah. Kevin and I usually don't agree on anything. Susan, did you have a question? It is. It's in the living room right now. Almost, let's see. The Maurer, the Scott, and the Dumont are the only ones that are on view right now. The ones that are works on paper, of course, won't be out as much, but we'll get them out on view as soon as we can. And you'll just have to come back often and be on the lookout for them. Okay, guys, thank you so much. That was fun. Next time we'll talk about New Kids on the Block.
All right, thank you, Julie. That was really great, and I also like the rabbits. So, and maybe if we ask Julie really nicely, we can get an exhibit on prints at some point in the future. So, thank you all for coming out. Remember, Women in the Arts this Saturday. We'll be having a special tour at 2 on Sunday. Our Mallory Wurzburger artist Matthew Lee will be giving the tour too. And join us next week for Claire Rukowski of Theater Memphis, who will be talking to us about women in the theater. Thank you and have a great rest of your afternoon.